The driver suddenly locked the doors. I looked up, confused, and asked what he was doing. He turned to me, his face pale, and said, "I'm not taking you to that address." I thought he was joking until he showed me his phone. What I saw made my blood run cold. My name is Lena Hart, and this happened to me last year in Seattle. I was just trying to get home from a late dinner, like any normal night. My Uber driver, Daniel Ruiz, seemed kind and quiet at first, but that ride changed how I see everything about trust, safety, and strangers. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe for more true stories and comment where you're watching from. I love hearing your reactions and stories too. It was a cool Friday evening in Seattle. The rain had stopped a few hours earlier, and the streets glistened under the streetlights. I'd just finished dinner with my coworker Chloe, and we'd laughed the whole time about how stressful the week had been. It felt good to finally unwind. When we said goodbye outside the restaurant, I called an Uber like I always did. I remember thinking how nice it would be to get home, change into pajamas, and call my mom before bed. The Uber arrived within minutes. A gray sedan pulled up, and the driver rolled down his window. "Lena?" he asked, checking his phone. I nodded. He smiled politely. "All right, hop in. Looks like we're heading north." The car smelled faintly of coffee and mint gum. The dashboard lights glowed softly, and for a few minutes it was just quiet. I glanced at the map on my phone. It showed the usual route home. Everything seemed normal. We made small talk as we pulled away from downtown. He asked about my day, and I told him I worked in marketing. He nodded and said, "Long hours, huh?" I laughed and said, "You have no idea." It was one of those calm, harmless exchanges you forget 5 minutes later. The rain started again, light and steady, tapping against the windows. I sat back and scrolled through my messages. My mom had texted me earlier. "Text me when you're home. Lock the doors. Love you." I smiled at my screen and typed back a quick heart emoji. I didn't notice anything strange at first. The car moved smoothly, and the city lights faded into quieter streets. After about 10 minutes, I realized we were heading toward a part of town I didn't recognize. The roads were darker here, lined with trees instead of buildings. I looked down at the Uber app. The blue route line was still active, but it wasn't matching the direction we were going. I leaned forward a little. "Hey, I think you missed a turn," I said lightly, not wanting to sound rude. He didn't respond. He just kept driving, his eyes fixed on the road. I waited a few seconds before trying again. "Sir, I think the app's telling us to go back the other way." Still nothing. He pressed his lips together and tapped the steering wheel twice. My pulse quickened. "Can you hear me?" I asked, my voice sharper now. That's when he spoke, his voice low and calm. "I know," he said. "I'm not taking you to that address." The words didn't make sense at first. I blinked, trying to process them. "What do you mean you're not taking me there? That's my home." He took a slow breath and locked the doors with a soft click. I heard the sound and felt my stomach twist. "What are you doing?" I demanded. He looked at me through the rearview mirror. His face wasn't angry. It was worried. "I need you to stay calm," he said quietly. I grabbed my phone, my hand shaking. "Why? What's going on?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled his phone from the mount on the dashboard and handed it toward me. "You need to see this," he said. I hesitated, staring at him, then took the phone. The screen was open to a text message from an unknown number. It said, "Do not bring her to the address. It's not safe. It's compromised." My throat went dry. "What does that mean?" I asked, looking at him. He nodded toward the phone. "Keep scrolling." I did. There was a picture, blurry but clear enough to recognize. It was my apartment building. 2 people were standing outside my door, both wearing dark hooded jackets. One of them was holding what looked like a crowbar. I felt the air leave my lungs. "Where did you get this?" I whispered. Daniel's voice was steady but tense. "Another driver sent it to me. He said you were being followed when you left that restaurant." I looked back at the photo, my hands shaking. I could barely breathe. My safe, quiet home, the place I was so eager to reach, wasn't safe at all. My mind couldn't make sense of what I was seeing. I stared at the photo on Daniel's phone, the image of my apartment door, those 2 shadowy figures standing outside, one of them gripping what looked like a metal bar. The text above the photo repeated in my head. Do not bring her to that address. I felt my chest tighten. Who sent this? I asked. Daniel glanced in the rearview mirror, his eyes darting between me and the road. A friend of mine, he said quietly. He drives for Uber too. We stay in touch during night shifts to stay safe. About 20 minutes ago, he texted me saying something weird was happening near your drop-off location. I tried to process it, but none of it made sense. You expect me to believe someone's waiting for me at my own home? That's insane. I don't know what to believe, he said, his hands gripping the steering wheel tighter. But I wasn't going to take the chance. The last time he sent me something like this, another driver got jumped picking up a passenger in the same neighborhood. I looked out the window. The city lights were fading behind us, replaced by dark stretches of road and empty parking lots. My heart started racing. Where are we going? I demanded. I'm taking you somewhere safe, he said, his tone firm but not threatening. There's a gas station near the highway that stays open all night. You can wait there until the police arrive. The police? I repeated, clutching my phone. Why aren't you calling them? I already did, he said, glancing quickly at his phone before putting it back in the mount. They told me to stay off that street. They're sending someone to check your building now. Part of me wanted to believe him, but fear kept twisting my thoughts. What if he was lying? What if this was a setup? Maybe he was the danger, and this story was just to make me trust him. My phone still had signal, so I opened the Uber app. My trip was still active, but the route line was gone. It just said, in progress. I pressed the emergency button inside the app. It started dialing 911, but Daniel reached over quickly. Don't, he said sharply. They already know. You'll just confuse things. I pulled back immediately, my heart pounding. You can't just tell me not to call the police. That's not your choice. He sighed and slowed the car, pulling over near a row of darkened storefronts. Listen, he said, turning to face me for the first time. His voice was steady, but urgent. You have every right to be scared. I get that, but I'm trying to keep you safe. If I wanted to hurt you, I wouldn't have stopped. I wouldn't have shown you that message. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The rain pattered softly against the windshield. The street outside was quiet. Too quiet. Finally, I said, show me the rest. Show me every message you got. He unlocked his phone and handed it to me. The chat thread showed several messages from another driver named Cal. The first said, don't drop off near 48th and Pine. Something's going on there. Then another. Passenger's name is Lena Hart. 2 men spotted outside her apartment. One might be armed. And the last one, the one that made my stomach drop. They were waiting before her ride was even confirmed. I swallowed hard. How would they know where I live before I even ordered the Uber? Daniel shook his head. That's what I've been trying to figure out. Someone's tracking riders' addresses. My buddy said it's been happening a lot lately. I stared at him, the panic now mixing with anger. You're saying someone hacked the Uber system? Maybe, he said. Or maybe someone inside is leaking information. I leaned back, gripping my phone so tightly my hand hurt. I texted my mom with shaking fingers. Don't go to my apartment. I'll call you soon. She replied almost instantly. What's wrong? But I didn't have the heart to answer. The car started moving again, turning onto a larger road lined with gas stations and diners. For the first time in 10 minutes, I saw other cars, other people. The sight gave me a little comfort, but not enough to calm my nerves. Then I noticed something strange. A dark SUV appeared in the rearview mirror, following a few car lengths behind us. At first, I told myself it was nothing, but when we turned, it turned too. When Daniel switched lanes, it did the same. Are you seeing that? I asked, my voice shaking. Daniel's jaw tightened. Yeah, he said quietly. I noticed them a few blocks back. I twisted around in my seat, trying to get a clearer look. The SUV's headlights flickered through the rain, its windshield impossible to see through. They've been behind us since downtown, Daniel said, his voice calm but low. Don't panic. Just stay down for a second. I ducked slightly as he took another turn, speeding up just a bit. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. Who are they? I whispered. I don't know, he said, but I'm not stopping to find out. He pressed the gas harder and the car picked up speed. The road curved sharply and the SUV followed close behind. "Daniel, they're gaining on us!" I shouted. He took a deep breath and said, "Then hold on tight." The tires screeched as he made a hard left into a narrow side street. The SUV blew past the intersection, missing the turn. For a brief moment, silence filled the car. I could finally breathe again. Daniel glanced at me, his hands still gripping the wheel. "Now do you believe me?" he asked quietly. I looked at him, my voice barely steady. "Yes," I said. "Now I do." The fear hadn't gone away, but something else had taken its place. Trust, fragile, uncertain, but real. For a few seconds, all I could hear was the sound of the rain and my own breathing. The SUV had disappeared down the main road, but my heart was still racing. Daniel slowed the car and turned onto a quieter street lined with trees. The windshield wipers clicked back and forth, sweeping away the rain, but my thoughts were tangled and heavy. I sat in silence, staring out the window. "Where are we going now?" I finally asked. Daniel kept his eyes on the road. "We can't go to your apartment, and I don't want to drive around in circles. I know someone who owns a repair shop a few blocks from here. He's closed at this hour, but I have the key. We can wait there until it's safe." His voice was calm but steady, and I could tell he was thinking quickly, planning each move. I looked down at my phone. I still had a signal. My mom had sent 3 more messages. "Lena, please answer." And "Are you okay?" I typed back fast. "I'm fine. Don't go to my place. I'll call soon." My fingers trembled as I hit send. When I looked up, I realized Daniel was turning into a narrow side street that led to a small industrial area. The streetlights flickered above us, casting uneven shadows on the wet ground. Everything felt too quiet. "I need to know the truth," I said. "If you're lying to me, I want to know right now." He pulled into a fenced lot and parked beside a small garage with the lights off. He turned off the engine but left the headlights on. "I'm not lying," he said softly. "You saw that message. You saw those men." I studied his face. His hands were trembling on the steering wheel. He wasn't trying to hide his fear, and somehow that made me believe him more. Still, every part of me was on edge. I looked around the dark lot. "This place doesn't look safe," I said. "It's safer than the open road," he replied. He grabbed his phone and started typing quickly, sending messages to someone. "I'm checking if my friend Cal is still online," he said. He was the one who warned me earlier. While he was typing, I kept my hand near the door handle, ready to bolt if I needed to. Then my phone buzzed again. A new text came through from an unknown number. "You can't hide from us." The message hit me like a wave of cold water. I froze and showed Daniel. His expression hardened. "They have your number," he said. "That means they know your identity, not just your address." I felt sick. How could they get that? He hesitated, then said quietly, "The app. The Uber system connects your phone to your pickup history. If someone inside the system has access, they could know everything. Your name, number, routes, even where you go most often." My stomach turned. "So you're saying someone at Uber is behind this?" He shook his head. "Not necessarily. It could be someone pretending to be part of the system. There are fake driver groups out there. My friend told me people are using cloned versions of the app to target certain passengers. They send out fake driver messages to set up attacks." I ran my hands through my hair, trying to think. "So what do we do now?" He turned to me, eyes steady. "We wait until I hear back from Cal. Then we go to the police together." I looked at him for a long second, then nodded. I wanted to trust him. He'd had plenty of chances to hurt me, but he hadn't. He'd kept me moving, kept me safe so far. Still, part of me couldn't shake the thought. What if this was all just a trap to make me trust him? Before I could think more, Daniel's phone buzzed. A new message flashed on the screen from Cal. "Be careful. They're tracking drivers too." He cursed under his breath and turned off his phone. "We have to move again," he said. "If they can track drivers, staying still is the worst thing we can do." The fear in his voice was different now, sharper, more urgent. I felt it in my chest like an echo. "Then where do we go?" He thought for a second. "There's a small police outpost near the interstate. It's not far, but we'll have to stay on the back roads." I took a deep breath and nodded. "All right, let's go." We pulled out of the lot and turned down another narrow road. The rain had slowed, but the streets were slick and empty. The silence inside the car was thick. I stared out the window, watching the reflections of streetlights streak across puddles as we passed. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw movement, a dark car pulling out of a side alley behind us. "Daniel," I said quietly, "I think we're being followed again." He glanced in the mirror, his jaw tightening. "Hold on," he said, gripping the wheel. He sped up, taking a sudden turn down another side street. The car behind us turned too. My heart slammed against my ribs. "They're not losing us." "I see them," he said, voice firm but strained. "We just need to reach the main road." The tires hissed against the wet pavement as he accelerated. The car behind us stayed close. I looked down at my phone, ready to hit 911 again. "I'm calling the police," I said. "Do it," he said, eyes locked on the road ahead. "Tell them exactly where we are." I gave the dispatcher our location as Daniel swerved through the back streets. The operator told me to stay on the line and keep the car moving until help arrived. Then Daniel spotted something up ahead, a glowing sign for the highway entrance. "We're almost there," he said. "Just a little farther." The car behind us suddenly slowed, then turned off onto another road and disappeared. Daniel finally let out a breath, his hands still shaking on the wheel. "I think we lost them," he said. I looked back one more time into the darkness, unsure if we were really safe. "Are you sure?" He nodded slightly, eyes still on the mirror. "For now," he said quietly. "But something tells me this isn't over." The sound of the rain faded as we drove up the highway. For a few brief minutes, it felt like we might actually be safe. I could still hear the faint buzz of static from the police dispatcher through my phone's speaker, but my thoughts were louder. I kept replaying every second in my mind. The messages, the men outside my door, the SUV that chased us. It didn't feel real. Daniel finally spoke, his voice low. "We'll stop at that outpost up ahead. They'll take your statement and help you figure out what's going on." I nodded, my hand still gripping my phone so tightly it hurt. "Do you think they'll believe us?" I asked. "They'll have to," he said. "You've got proof. Those messages, that photo, that's enough to get them moving." I wanted to believe that. I wanted to believe everything was about to end. But deep down, a part of me knew it wasn't that simple. The small police outpost came into view, a single building with bright lights and 2 patrol cars parked outside. Daniel pulled into the lot and turned off the engine. The silence that followed felt heavy. "Stay close to me," he said, opening his door. The wind hit me the second I stepped outside, cold and sharp. I followed him toward the entrance, my shoes splashing through puddles. Inside, a young officer behind the desk looked up, startled. "Can I help you?" Daniel stepped forward. "We need to report a threat. Someone's been following her. I'm her driver." The officer motioned for us to sit. "All right, let's take it slow," he said, pulling out a notepad. "Start from the beginning." I told him everything, from the dinner downtown to the moment Daniel showed me that text. I even handed him Daniel's phone so he could see the messages. He nodded as he listened, occasionally jotting something down. When I finished, he asked, "And you said there were 2 men outside your apartment?" "Yes," I said. One had something in his hand, like a crowbar or a pipe. The officer's expression changed slightly. He stood up and said, "Wait here a second." Then he disappeared into a back office, taking Daniel's phone with him. We waited in silence. I could hear the hum of the vending machine, the soft ticking of a wall clock. Daniel sat with his hands clasped tightly together, staring at the floor. Something about the room felt wrong. Too quiet, too empty. I finally whispered, "Do you think he's calling for backup?" Daniel didn't look up. "I hope so." After a few minutes, the officer came back. He looked calm, almost too calm. "Good news," he said. "We checked your address. Everything's fine. No one's there." I frowned. "That's impossible. There were people outside. You can't check that fast." He smiled politely. "We have cameras in that area. Nothing unusual showed up. Maybe it was a misunderstanding." A chill ran down my spine. I shook my head. No, it wasn't a misunderstanding. There were messages on his phone. Pictures. The officer glanced at Daniel. "Mind if I see your phone again?" Daniel hesitated. "You already took it." The officer blinked, pretending not to understand. "No, I didn't. You didn't hand it over." My stomach twisted. Yes, he did, I said. You took it into that office. The officer's polite smile didn't fade. Ma'am, I think you're tired and confused. Why don't we get you some water? Daniel stood up fast. We're leaving, he said firmly. Sir, sit down, the officer said, his tone sharper now. Daniel turned to me. Lena, we have to go. Before I could move, 2 more men appeared from the back hallway, both in uniform, both wearing expressionless faces. One of them held something small in his hand. Maybe a phone, maybe a remote. Don't, the first officer said quietly. You don't want to make this harder. The room felt like it was closing in. I stepped back toward the door, my heart pounding. What's going on? I demanded. The officer sighed. You weren't supposed to see those messages. They weren't meant for you. My throat went dry. What are you talking about? Daniel moved in front of me, his voice steady. You're part of it, aren't you? You're the reason that message disappeared. The officer didn't answer. Instead, he nodded to one of the men behind him. The lights in the room flickered once, and the power went out. Run! Daniel shouted. I didn't think. I just ran. The front door flew open as we bolted outside into the storm. The rain hit my face like ice. Behind us, I heard footsteps and shouting. Daniel grabbed my hand and pulled me toward the car. He fumbled for the keys, hands shaking. Get in! The engine roared to life just as one of the officers burst out of the building, yelling for us to stop. Daniel slammed his foot on the gas, and the car sped out of the lot. My chest hurt from breathing so hard, but I didn't dare look back. We drove in silence for what felt like hours. The city lights slowly came into view again, glowing faintly through the rain. Finally, Daniel spoke, voice barely above a whisper. They were never after your apartment. They were after you. I turned to him, confused. Why me? He looked exhausted. Because your name was on that list. What list? He took a deep breath. Project Vantage. It's something my friend found inside the Uber network. Names of people tracked by location data. People marked for something. He didn't know why. He just said if your name ever came up, to get you out fast. My stomach turned. You think the police are part of it? He nodded slowly. If that officer erased the messages, then yeah. It's bigger than we thought. The windshield wipers swept across the glass again. The sound steady and soft. I looked out at the wet road, my reflection faint in the window. I thought of my mom waiting at home, probably pacing, probably terrified. I wanted to call her so badly, but I couldn't. Not yet. Not until I knew we were truly safe. Daniel finally turned onto a quiet side street and parked under a broken streetlight. We'll stop here for now, he said, but we can't stay long. I stared out into the rain, my heart still racing. Daniel, I said softly, what happens now? He looked at me, his eyes tired but determined. Now, he said, we find out who's watching. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight cutting through the blinds of a small motel room. For a moment, I didn't know where I was. The smell of rain lingered in the air, and the sound of distant traffic hummed like a lullaby. Then everything came rushing back. The chase, the police station, the message, the faces of those officers who weren't supposed to be there. My chest tightened as I sat up, trying to catch my breath. Daniel was sitting in the corner near the window, his jacket still damp from the night before. He hadn't slept. His eyes were fixed on his phone, scrolling through something quietly. Did we make it through the night? I asked softly. He nodded. No one followed us. I kept watch. We're clear for now. His voice was calm, but the exhaustion underneath it was clear. I looked around the room. 2 beds, a flickering lamp, and a coffee maker that hadn't been touched. It felt temporary, like a hiding place instead of safety. I rubbed my eyes. What happens now? He hesitated before answering. My friend Cal texted me this morning. He said the network's been wiped. The messages, the chat history, everything's gone. It's like they erased all traces of what happened last night. I stared at him, my stomach sinking. So there's no proof? Nothing we can show anyone? He shook his head. Nothing left. It's like it never happened. The words hit harder than I expected. For the first time, I realized the full weight of it. We were alone. The people who had followed us, the ones who erased those messages, they had power, enough to control what people saw and what they didn't. I walked to the bathroom sink and splashed cold water on my face. When I looked up, the person in the mirror barely looked like me. My hair was tangled, my eyes were red, and my expression was one I'd never seen before, somewhere between fear and determination. When I came back out, Daniel had set a small notebook on the bed. I wrote down what I remember, he said. Names, times, details. We might not have the messages anymore, but at least we have this. I sat beside him and flipped through the pages. His handwriting was fast and rough, but every detail matched my memory. It wasn't much, but it was something. I can't go back to my apartment, I said quietly. They know where I live. They know my name. He nodded. You'll need to stay somewhere else for a while. Somewhere far. I thought about my mom. I'd been avoiding calling her since we ran. She must have been terrified. She doesn't even know what's happening, I said. Tell her you're safe, he said softly. But don't tell her where you are. The less she knows, the better. That advice broke my heart, but I understood. I picked up my phone and dialed her number. When she answered, her voice cracked with relief. Lena? Oh my God, where are you? I've been calling the police all night. I'm okay, Mom, I said, trying to sound steady. Don't worry. I just can't come home right now. What do you mean you can't come home? She asked, panic rising in her voice. Lena, what's going on? I'll explain later. Please, just trust me. I'm safe. I'll call again soon. There was silence on the other end. Then, softly, she said, whatever this is, just promise me you'll come back. I closed my eyes. I promise, I said, though I wasn't sure I could keep it. After the call, Daniel suggested we grab something to eat. We found a small diner a few blocks away. Everything felt strangely normal. The smell of pancakes, the sound of a coffee machine, people laughing at the counter. It was like stepping into another world, one untouched by what we'd seen. While we waited for our food, I looked around the room, scanning faces without meaning to. Every person, every phone, every quiet glance made me feel watched. It wasn't paranoia, it was instinct. Once you've seen what hides behind normal life, you can't unsee it. Daniel handed me a folded paper. It's the number of a journalist I know, he said. She's been digging into cases like this for months. If anyone can get the truth out, it's her. I looked at the number and nodded. Do you think she'll believe me? He gave a tired smile. After what you've been through, I think she'll have to. We finished breakfast in silence. Before we left, I caught our reflection in the diner window. Two people who looked like they'd aged years in a single night. Later that day, I used a public library computer to email the journalist. I didn't include my full name or location, just the story. The title line read, "If I disappear, here's why." I attached photos of the notebook pages and hit send. When I walked out, the sun was starting to set again. The air smelled clean after the rain. For the first time, I felt a strange calm. Not safety, just clarity. That night, in another motel room miles away, I sat by the window and thought about everything. The apartment, the fake officers, the message that started it all. The world looked the same, but I wasn't the same person anymore. I realized something important. Safety isn't about locked doors or familiar places. It's about awareness. It's about knowing that danger doesn't always come with warning signs. It can come disguised as routine, as trust, as normal. I didn't know who those people were or what they wanted, but I knew this wasn't over. Somewhere out there, someone was still watching. Maybe they wanted me to forget, to move on, but I wouldn't. I'd remember every detail, every warning, every reason to keep my eyes open, because the truth has a way of finding light, even when someone tries to bury it. If you found this story as chilling as I did living through it, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more true stories and comment where you're watching from. I love hearing your thoughts and what you would have done if you were in my place.